What's going on, everybody? It's AuroraYJ coming at you with a brand new video, and let me just say the current Yu-Gi-Oh format is wild. After the most recent Forbidden and Limited list nuked tier limit to the ground, it's sort of like a Wild West as to what decks you could play right now. After gathering up information from top 8 regional spots since YCS Las Vegas, I've found over 30 unique decks that have earned themselves a top cut between any of these regionals. It's one of the most diverse formats I've seen in a long time, and that includes Dimension Force format or Power of the Elements format, and honestly it's really fun to see. Because of this sheer diversity though, it might be a bit of a head scratcher trying to figure out what the best decks are and how to combat them. Worry not, fellow duelist, for I'm here to bring you my top 5 meta decks for the March 2023 Yu-Gi-Oh format. Before we get into this list, let me be clear that this list is completely based on top cut representation, so if you personally think that one deck ranks over another, that's perfectly fine. I'm just using the information that was provided to me, so be sure not to go after anybody in the comments or myself over their opinion, because at the end of the day, it's just a card game and it's just completely unneeded. But with that out of the way, let's get right into the list. Starting off our list at number 5, we have Labyrinth. So, Labyrinth is always a deck that had serious potential, and now that we're in a format where Bystials are non-existent, they've really gotten their chance to shine. With effects that allow you to plus immensely from removing cards on the field by either drawing cards, recycling resources, or even ripping cards straight from the opponent's field or hand, a single set trap could easily snowball the deck from 0 to hero in the matter of a turn. The real hero of the deck, though, is Lady Labyrinth of the Silver Castle, a monster that can special summon herself during the turn that a Labyrinth monster effect or a normal trap card effect was activated, and every time a normal trap is activated once per turn, you can set any other normal trap directly from your deck. Yeah, any normal trap. This can not only fetch the really important removal cards that the archetype revolves around, but it can also search really powerful floodgates such as Eradicator Epidemic Virus and Dimensional Barrier. This card is probably single-handedly carrying a lot of Labyrinth players to the top, as it literally shuts down 3 out of the 5 decks we're going to be talking about today. Combine this with the fact that lovely Labyrinth can continuously reset it every single turn, and it just ends up being really nasty. Granted, I do think that Labyrinth would be a top tier deck even without these powerful floodgate cards like Eradicator, Dimensional Barrier, and even Skill Drain, but let's be real, it's probably carrying a lot of Labyrinth players right now. I think the main reason that Labyrinth doesn't go any higher than its currently 8 regional tops as of recording this video is because of the sheer power of back row removal, that being cards like Harpy's Feather Duster, Evenly Matched, Lightning Storm, and then of course Castro being able to lock off all of their spell and trap zones, making them unable to play. Regardless though, the sheer amount of advantage combined with consistency and how generic their cards work together makes me seriously believe this is the greatest trap deck ever printed, and you'd better be prepared if you don't want to insta-lose to this deck. Coming in at number 4 on the list, we have Sprite. Yeah, even after losing such an important card like Sprite Elf on the last Forbidden and Limited list, Sprite is still kicking with over 9 regional tops as of recording. Even without a card as strong as Elf for comboing and recursion, the Sprite engine is still as powerful as ever, being able to be super consistent and have an insane resource game, which is super important in a format where resources matter more than anything, especially when it comes to wiping a board or getting your board wiped. The interesting thing though without Elf is that the pure route for Sprite ends up not being the be-all end-all way to play the deck, and a lot of players are getting a lot more creative when it comes to how they play the deck. You can play Tri-Brigade Sprite, you can play Runic Sprite, you can play the now popular Live Twin Sprite. Hell, YCS Vegas had a top cut Castro Sprite list of all things. You can also still play the deck pure and focus more on your resource game than anything, but if you're really that desperate to keep the toad on your end board like before, you can easily make something like Bujinki Ahashima, a Link 2 that allows you to special summon 2 monsters with the same level, 1 from hand and 1 from grave, and then immediately Xyz summon with them, which is not just good for making toad, but also helps with your other rank 2 plays if needed. There's genuinely way too many different variants of Sprite and ways to play the deck for me to cover in just this video, but the main idea with Sprite right now is that you want to outgrind your opponent with your insane resource game, utilizing cards like Red, Carrot, Double Cross, Smashers, etc. as your disruptions, in order to slowly chip away at them and prevent them from playing, especially considering that right now, a lot of decks can only play through a few disruptions at a time. If you really want to see the differences in the Sprite variants, there are probably so many different deck profiles and tutorials you can find on YouTube that would explain it a lot better than I am. But for now, I'd keep an eye out for any straggling Sprite players around your local scene, because you'd probably get caught by surprise if you thought this deck was dead. The midpoint of our list at number 3 is going to go to Sword Soul. So Sword Soul was a deck that had a reign as the best deck for over a year since its release, even winning the North American National Championship in 2022, but slowly fell off the face of the earth after tier limit format began, since the power ceiling of the game went way higher than the deck was used to. With tier out of the picture though, and no Bystials in sight because of it, to mess with its Tenyi plays of course, Sword Soul has once again come back to show the world what it can do. With incredibly consistent 1.5 to 2 card combos, the deck can easily make endboards with cards like Chi-Xiao, Baron de Fleur, Chi-Xing Longlon, and even sometimes a Draco Berserker of the Tenyi, which usually is enough to stop a lot of decks right now, and even if it's not, you can also fetch a card like Sword Soul Blackout, which is huge right now given that a lot of decks need at least 2 monsters on board to get their plays going. The deck even has built-in protection in Nibiru, which is a huge card right now seeing a lot of play in the form of Baron de Fleur, and they don't really care about cards like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring either. A great part about the Sword Soul strategy is that it excels both going first and going second, with cards like Incredible Ecclesia allowing you to start off your plays without wasting the precious normal summon that the deck relies so hard on, and of course Tenyi Spirit Vishuddha still being to this day one of the best archetypal board breakers. Admittedly, they can struggle a bit against a good Castro player if that player happens to open a really nice hand, but that's where Ice Shade Geimer Adrian comes in. Adrian is a card that was already going to see play in Sword Soul due to being really strong against tier limit, but funnily enough, it's almost just as good against Castra as well. So basically, you can make all of your monsters unable to be destroyed by or banished by card effects, and as a quick effect, if you chain it in response to a card effect, you can banish all cards with that name from the opponent's field and graveyard. To top it off, she can even revive herself if a card is banished by an opponent's card effect, which, newsflash, happens to be the entire Castro strategy. Sword Soul is easily a top contender this format with a whopping 14 regional tops right now, and it's really easy to see how much of a vengeance this deck has come back with. On a similar note, at number 2, we have Branded. So Branded is another deck from the Sword Soul era, competing with it for a while for the place of best deck, but now it's even stronger than before. You can easily set up powerful endboards with cards like Mirror Jade, Branded in red, and cards that are new out of Photon Hypernova, such as Rinbrum the Striking Dragon, which allows you to negate the activation of an extra deck monster's effect, and then you can non-target bounce a monster on the field with the hand. Did you know you can use this on your own Mirror Jade to negate it, but still allow you to use it next turn and get a free dump from your extra deck? The other new card they received from Photon Hypernova is Gronginiel the Dust Dragon, which allows you to dump any level 6 or higher light or dark from your main or extra deck to the graveyard on Fusion Summon, which includes but is not limited to Albion the Branded Dragon, Ad Libitum of Despia, and even Bystial Rebellion. That's not all though, because you can also banish it from your field or graveyard when your opponent summons a monster off of an activated monster effect, Nibiru, to special summon any Despia monster from your extra deck. This can include Despian Queritus, a monster that is almost guaranteed to help you either go for the kill or to protect you for a whole turn, and if it's removed from the field, you can even float into a cheeky Albaz or a Luber. And it also includes Despian Priskenian, which can banish or steal an extra deck monster from the opponent's graveyard every single turn. The nastiest thing that Branded can do right now, though, is of course the infamous Branded Expulsion Lock, currently using Gimmick Puppet Nightmare in order to summon it to the opponent's field, and then prevent them from special summoning for the entire turn, even if it leaves the field, because it is a lingering effect. The deck does, as always, struggle against cards like Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring though, which has come back with a vengeance, but it actually gets a lot of help right now due to fusion deployment allowing you to access cards like Blazing Cartesia, which lets you fuse without the need for a spell, but it's also really good for summoning something like Neospacian Aqua Dolphin by revealing Aqua Neos in your extra deck, which allows you to not only check their hand for an Ash Blossom and rip it out, but also burns them for 500, which is good for going into time. Admittedly, they also can lose to any sort of spell and trap disruption on their end board. However, a lot of Branded players are going back to the roots of the deck from the very beginning and playing Red Eyes Dark Dragoon. Dragoon is a fantastic card that not only serves as an Omni-Negate with protection that can get really huge, as well as blowing up pieces of an end board and burning for a bunch of damage, but it also allows Branded Fusion to be a one-card board breaker against the Castra deck. I myself will be having a Branded deck profile likely up by the time this video is up, so I will link it in the top right annotation if you do want to check it out and want to be ahead of the curve. Branded is such a powerful deck right now with a whopping 24 tops regional wide, and it's only going to get better come the next core set, Cyberstorm Access, so I definitely learn the deck now if you haven't already before it's too late. Before we get to the number 1 pick, I do want to ask if you have enjoyed the video so far, please be sure to leave a like on it as that helps put the video into the YouTube algorithm so that other people can see it, and if you really want to support the channel directly and you want to keep up to date with more awesome Yu-Gi-Oh content, consider subscribing and turning on notifications so that you don't miss out. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into my final pick for this list. And now, my number 1 meta deck for the March 2023 format is, you guessed it, it's Castro. Castro just recently got its newest wave of support out of Photon Hypernova, and it's already proven itself to be the biggest deck in the room. And I'm not just talking about that price tag. This deck is incredibly nasty, able to not only lock out your zones, but also end on a walking macrocosmos, a targeting face down banish, things like Fenrir and Unicorn as well, and you throw an extender into the mix and they're also ripping a card straight from your extra deck and many cards off the top of your deck due to the potent effect of Diablosis the Mind Hacker. Can we seriously ban this card already? It's already warping deck building right now. Now, Castro is a deck that it definitely showcases some of the least fun end boards in Yu-Gi-Oh, but there are a lot of arguments that it isn't all that's cracked up to be due to how many cards that I can actually out their end board. Be it things like Book of Eclipse, Lava Golem, Evenly Matched, etc., there are a bunch of different cards that people are maining or citing right now that can single-handedly take down a Castro end board and allow you to play the game. But that's not to say that Castro players aren't prepared for this though, with things like the Adventure Engine allowing them to set up a free Omni-Negate for things like Nibiru and Evenly Matched, while also just so happening to be a level 7, and then of course the Punk Engine allowing them to have level 10 Synchro access, of course meeting cards like Baron de Fleur. The deck becomes significantly harder to stop when they have disruptions for your disruptions. A lot of Castro players are also just passing on end boards of Arise Heart and that's it, because it avoids things like Nibiru and Lava Golem, but a walking macro and a targeting face down banish are surprisingly enough to win you games this format. Hell, they're even playing cards like Forbidden Lance right now to make their cards unaffected by Book of Eclipse, meaning that you still have at least one threat to deal with after using it. Castro absolutely does have plenty of counters, but they're not going down without a fight, and it's absolutely the deck to beat as it has a whopping, holy shit, 39 top cut slots? I think it's plain to see why this card has taken up the number 1 slot as the best deck of the March 2023 format. And that's going to do it for my top 5 meta decks for this format. Again, this was information taken directly from the regional level, and so because it is almost all facts, I'm definitely going to say that this video can be taken at least somewhat accurately. I know these decks aren't for everybody though, and there are so many different decks right now, so I will also be having a top 5 rogue deck list that should be going up within a day or 2 of this video, so be sure to check that out. And of course, tell me in the comments, what deck are you playing this format? Again, just so many decks you can play right now. Personally, I'm going to be on Branded myself, but really you can take any competent deck with a side build for the meta and just probably see success at the regional level. But with that out of the way, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.